Here's something nobody's talking about. The biggest threat to your leadership isn't AI replacing jobs or competitors moving faster. It's you losing the human edge that made great leaders great in the first place. I spent months digging through military history, samurai philosophy, and modern organizational psychology, and found something wild. Leaders from centuries ago were solving the exact problems you're facing right now. No algorithms, no data analytics, just pure strategic thinking. And what they figured out, it's the missing piece in every AI implementation I've studied. Let me show you what I mean. Why? Loyalty beats technology every single time. What if your biggest competitive advantage has nothing to do with the AI tools you're buying? Here's something that stopped me cold. During my research, I was studying the organizational structure of feudal Japan's military units and discovered that samurai clans with average resources consistently defeated better-equipped rivals. How? Through something called Chugi, a loyalty principle so powerful it made individuals perform beyond what seemed humanly possible. But this wasn't blind loyalty. It wasn't drink the Kool-Aid corporate nonsense. It was a two-way contract sealed in blood and honor. A leader who demanded loyalty had to prove one thing first: that his warriors' lives mattered as much as his own ambitions, that he'd bleed alongside them, that there would be no sacrifice he'd ask that he wouldn't make himself. Now, let's talk about what's happening in your organization right now. You're rolling out AI systems. Some tasks are getting automated. Some roles are shifting. Some people are nervous about their future. And here's the question that separates mediocre leaders from legendary ones. Are you using AI to elevate your people or replace them? Because they know the answer, even if you haven't said it out loud. They can feel it in how you talk about efficiency gains and optimization. They can sense it when you get vague about future headcount. They're reading between the lines of every corporate email. I interviewed teams at companies going through major AI transformations. The pattern is crystal clear. Organizations that retain their best talent through disruption have leaders who reposition people before technology displaces them. They're upskilling aggressively. They're creating new roles that didn't exist before. They're transparent about changes 6 months before they happen, not 6 days. This is where most leaders completely miss it. They think loyalty is about paying competitively or offering good benefits. That's baseline. That's hygiene. Real loyalty, the kind that makes people stay through chaos, the kind that makes them give you their absolute best work, comes from feeling genuinely invested in. The samurai understood something profound. In the moment of crisis, when everything's on the line, authority doesn't motivate people. Fear doesn't sustain them. Only genuine mutual commitment does. Only the knowledge that my leader has my back unlocks that extra gear. Here's what this means practically. When you implement AI that changes workflows, your first conversation isn't about efficiency metrics. It's about growth paths. It's about, here's what's changing. Here's how we're investing in you to thrive in that change. Here's how your role becomes more strategic, not obsolete. Practical action. Within the next week, identify 3 people whose roles will be most impacted by AI in the next year. Book one-on-one time with each. Don't talk about what's being automated. Talk about what they're going to become. Create an actual development plan, not vague promises. Specific skills, specific timelines, specific new responsibilities. Then follow through. That's Chugi. That's building loyalty that technology can't replace. But loyalty without trust is just obligation. And building real trust in an age of algorithmic decisions, that requires something most leaders are terrified to do. What happens when you stop hiding behind the algorithm? Here's an uncomfortable question. Are you using AI to make better decisions or to avoid accountability? I need to tell you about Makoto honesty and sincerity in the samurai code. This wasn't about being nice or transparent in the corporate buzzword sense. This was about something way more hardcore: preferring death over living with dishonor caused by deception. Sounds extreme, right? But strip away the dramatic language and you get to something essential. A samurai's word was his most valuable asset. One lie, one half-truth, one convenient omission, and that reputation was permanently damaged. Now look at how AI is being deployed across industries. How many times have you seen this pattern? Big promises about what the technology will deliver, mediocre results, then a quiet narrative adjustment pretending, this is what we meant all along. Our AI will revolutionize customer experience, becomes, we're learning and iterating. Complete process automation becomes automation of specific tasks with human oversight. And nobody explicitly says, we miscalculated. It was more complex than anticipated. Here's what kills me about this. Your team sees the gap. They heard the original pitch. They see the actual results. And when you don't acknowledge the difference, trust erodes slowly but permanently. I dove into case studies of AI implementations that succeeded versus those that failed spectacularly. The differentiator isn't technical sophistication, it's leadership, honesty about limitations. Companies where leaders explicitly communicate what AI can't do, where humans still need to think critically, where failure is discussed openly, those organizations build real innovation cultures. Why? Because when acknowledging mistakes doesn't mean career suicide. People take smarter risks. When you can say, the algorithm got this wrong, without deflecting blame, you create spaces where people actually question the machine's output instead of accepting it blindly. This is critical. Over trusting AI, because you oversold its capabilities, creates massive blind spots. How many bad decisions have been made because the AI recommended it and nobody pushed back? How many biases got amplified because everyone assumed algorithms are objective? How many opportunities got missed because the machine wasn't programmed to see them? Makoto in the AI era means something radical. You must communicate technological limitations before celebrating its promises. You must take full responsibility when algorithms fail because you chose to trust them. You must be brutally clear about what AI can and cannot do in your specific context. And here's the counterintuitive part. When you do this, people trust you more, not less. Because in a world where everyone's selling magic solutions and guaranteed results, radical honesty is the actual differentiator. Practical action. In your next presentation about AI results or initiatives, do something uncomfortable. Start with limitations. List 3 things the technology definitively won't solve. Be specific about where human judgment remains irreplaceable. Watch how this changes the room's energy. So you've built loyalty and established trust through honesty. But there's one more samurai principle that ties everything together, and it's the hardest one to practice. How to see what your data can't show you. What if the real competitive edge isn't in your analytics dashboard? Let me take you back to 16th century Japan. The Sengoku period. Total chaos. Constant warfare, betrayal around every corner. And here's what I discovered that changed how I think about strategy completely. The samurai lords who survived weren't the ones with the biggest armies or best weapons. They were the ones who could see 3 moves ahead. They called it Yomi, the art of reading hidden intentions. It wasn't mysticism. It was brutal mental discipline. They studied behavioral patterns, watched micro-expressions, analyzed the emotional terrain of their adversaries, all without a single data point or predictive model. Now, bring this forward to today. You've got unlimited data, machine learning, predictions, simulations, processing millions of scenarios per second. But here's the problem. Nobody wants to admit. Everyone has access to the same data. Your competitors use the same analytics platforms, the same AI tools, the same consultants. So where's your actual advantage? It's the same capability that separated average samurai from legendary ones. Seeing beyond the obvious. Not blindly trusting the numbers your machines deliver. Asking questions the AI wasn't programmed to ask. Understanding the human context behind the data. Intuiting the move that hasn't shown up in the metrics yet. A samurai knew the most dangerous enemy wasn't the one visible on the battlefield, but the one who hadn't revealed their intentions yet. Similarly, your biggest risks and opportunities aren't in monthly reports, they're in invisible trends, emerging behaviors, cultural shifts your algorithms will take 6 months to detect. I studied modern examples of this. Companies that saw market pivots before the data confirmed it. Leaders who made counterintuitive calls that seemed crazy until they proved brilliant. The common thread? They developed what I call strategic sensitivity, mixing experience, deep observation, and yes, trained intuition that samurai spent years perfecting. High performance isn't about reacting fast to data. It's about anticipating what the data can't yet show. It's developing that almost sixth sense for patterns where others only see noise. Here's what this means for you. AI gives you speed and scale in processing known patterns, but breakthrough leadership requires spotting unknown patterns, detecting the weak signals, feeling the shift before it's measurable. Practical action. Every week, do what I call the Yomi exercise. Take your 3 most important decisions. Ignore the data for a moment. Ask yourself, what is my team not telling me? What behavior am I seeing that contradicts the metrics? What move would my competitor make if they were desperate? What customer need are we not measuring? Train your mind to see patterns in apparent randomness. If you recognize that strategic foresight beats any algorithm, drop Yomi in the comments. Hit that like button if this is resonating, and subscribe to this channel because we're digging up what actually works, not what sounds good in theory, but seeing the future means nothing if you can't bring people along to execute your vision. And that requires one final principle that most leaders completely misunderstand. Why? Your reputation is your most powerful. AI integration. Quick test. Would your team describe you as predictably honest or strategically vague? We've arrived at Meiyo honor and reputation in the samurai code. This wasn't about being liked or politically correct. This was about trust built through relentless consistency. A samurai who broke his word once carried that stain for life. There was no reasonable excuse or justifiable context. Your word was your most valuable asset, and you protected it with your life. Here's what's happening in the corporate world right now. Leaders implement AI, promising efficiency, transparency, biased decisions. 6 months later, algorithms make biased choices, automated layoffs without human context, predictions go completely wrong, costing millions. And the typical response? It was the algorithm. The data was incomplete. Nobody could have foreseen this. Basically, outsourcing responsibility. Here's the uncomfortable truth. AI amplifies your integrity, or your lack of it. If you're transparent, AI becomes a tool for clarity. If you're evasive, it becomes convenient. Smokescreen. Applying Meiyo to the AI era means something radical. You need to communicate technology's limitations before celebrating its promises. You must take total responsibility when algorithms fail because you chose to deploy them. You need to be brutally clear about what AI can and cannot do in your organization. And here's what happens when you do this. Something counterintuitive. People trust you more, not less. Because in a world where everyone's selling magic bullets and guaranteed outcomes, radical honesty is the real rarity. I analyzed dozens of organizations navigating AI transformation. The pattern is clear. Companies that openly discuss AI failures, explain hybrid decision-making human plus machine, admit when they don't know something. These organizations have absurdly higher talent retention rates. Why? Because trust isn't about never making mistakes. It's about never lying about the mistake. It's about keeping your word even when it's inconvenient. It's about having a reputation so solid that when things go wrong, people think they'll fix it instead of they'll dodge responsibility. This creates something powerful. A culture where people actually experiment because failure doesn't mean cover up time. Where innovation happens because admitting we tried and learned is acceptable. Practical action. Implement what I call sincerity reports. Every quarter, document what exceeded expectations, what met expectations, what failed, why it failed, what we learned, not to punish, but to recalibrate. Share this with the entire team. If you believe brutal honesty beats polished narrative, comment Meiyo below. Which of these samurai principles do you most need to develop right now? Strategic foresight, loyalty building, radical honesty, or reputation management? Drop it in the comments. And share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. Because leading in the AI era isn't about mastering technology, it's about mastering yourself first. This content is for educational and motivational purposes. The historical analyses presented are interpretations for leadership development and do not replace formal academic studies. The strategies suggested should be adapted to the specific context of each organization. Always consult with specialists when implementing significant changes in your organizational or technological structure.